Well, let's speak to Catherine Forster now, who, of course, was at the press conference, or should I say the rally? I mean, it was an auditorium event. And Catherine, you've been speaking to Nigel Farage.
Yes, good afternoon from Billingsgate Market. We came expecting a press conference. We found a rally, and I thought most of the questions for Nigel Farage were going to be about Andy Burnham. And then, lo and behold, Suella Braverman defected across to Reform. They've now got 8 MPs. It has long been rumoured that she might go across to Reform. Her husband previously did. The last time I interviewed her for GB News, she said it would never happen. How times change. But anyway, I spoke to Nigel Farage. Let's have a look at what he said about Suella Braverman and Andy Burnham.
A party that accepts talent. If you get people who we believe are talented, who will put their shoulder to the wheel, who will help us, but are also prepared to admit honestly the failings of the Conservative Party in 14 years in government, and particularly in the last term, provided they're prepared to put their hands up and say, I'm sorry, we got this badly wrong. They've got experience of being in the front line, which of course I lack, and many of my team lack, then they're very welcome. And I think it's very interesting. I mean, today, there are 2 big political stories. One of them is Suella Braverman joining Reform. The other, of course, is Andy Burnham being blocked from standing in the Denson and Gorton by-election. And that's the difference between Keir Starmer and myself. I'm welcoming talent in, and he's keeping talent out.
Well, we'll come to Andy Burnham in a second, but you talk about Britain being broken, but you're filling Reform with the very people that broke it.
Well, the Conservative government did break it, absolutely. But you see, there are people like Robert Jenrick who resigned as a matter of principle. People like Suella Braverman who spoke out on ECHR, said we should leave, and was removed from her post. So we are taking people who tried their best to fight the system at the time, and they admit they failed, and that's why they're here.
But can the public trust them, given their record in office? Are you not worried that this could come back to bite you?
Look, I'm not welcoming people like Priti Patel, who says she did nothing wrong, despite opening the doors to the biggest levels of immigration Britain ever saw. I'm not welcoming Boris Johnson. I'm not recognising those who were part of the problem and still refuse to accept it.
OK, on to Andy Burnham and that by-election now. Have you decided who will run for Reform in the Gorton and Denton by-election?
We haven't decided yet who the candidate is. Our applications closed last night, and I'll be looking at it this afternoon.
Do you think Andy Burnham not running makes it easier now for you to win it?
I think if Andy Burnham had run, he would have picked up an anti-Keir Starmer vote. You know, bear in mind, this is the most unpopular Prime Minister in living memory. There would have been a pro-Burnham, anti-Starmer vote. That won't be there anymore, and I think the anti-Starmer vote will come to us.
We're living in a time of what feels like pretty significant social change, and it makes us question things that we've even taken for granted for decades. And one of those at the moment that people are wondering about is actually money. Is the money in your bank account safe? Should you be investing elsewhere? Are we looking at a potential global crash? What will it mean for your savings? Is there a way that you could be using your money that might be outside of government control even? Well, TallyMoney is potentially one solution. So I'm delighted to say that I'm joined today by the CEO and founder of TallyMoney, Cameron Parry. What is TallyMoney?
Well, at TallyMoney, you basically get gold you can spend. So we give people an individual account in their name, everyday account. They get a sort code, an account number. They use that account just like they would pounds from their bank, but it's milligrams of gold that we brand as Tally.
Okay. Why would you do that, though? What is the benefit to the customer instead of just having a normal pound sterling account?
Gold's performance against the pound is above 11% per annum over the last 25 years on average. But we still need money in our daily lives, and we have savings. We know that it's good common sense and prudent to save up for things, not just living credit. You know, whether it's a holiday or a rainy day, your retirement planning, you need to have money in your life, basically, that you can rely on, that's dependable, that nobody meddles with, that nobody can weaponise against you, which is another element of government control when it's the government currency, which we could talk about another time. And it should be pretty simple and straightforward. And that's what we deliver at Tally. And really, we just want people to feel safe and happy with their money. There was a time when the bigger your bank balance, the more confident you felt. Now it's like, I need to do something with it. I can't leave it there. In Tally, you can.
Okay, brilliant. Cameron Parry from TallyMoney, thank you so much.
Thank you, Bev.
Richard Tice been saying today that Labour's terrified of reform in Greater Manchester. That's why Andy Burnham was blocked from Parliament. But you have silenced some of your own dissenters, Rupert Lowe, Ben Habib, for example. So if you were Prime Minister Keir Starmer today, you would have made the same decision, sure.
Well, look, they've made their decision for whatever reason. Yes, it's quite possible that Andy Burnham could have won the by-election, but that Labour could have lost the Greater Manchester mayoralty. That is quite possible. Look, I'm very happy for people to have different points of view as long as they're batting for the same team. We've had one or two difficulties over the last year. We've dealt with them.
But Andy Burnham has got better favourability ratings than just about any other politician. If he was Prime Minister, that would be harder for you, wouldn't it be?
He's not Prime Minister. He's not likely to be Prime Minister. He'll have to win a by-election and get back into Parliament. And I think this particular constituency probably offered him one of the best prospects he could possibly have had. So whatever side of the argument we're on, I think we're stuck with Keir Starmer for a period of time.
You've been talking about veterans and your pledges to them if you form a reform government. Trump obviously upset a lot of people last week about his comments, NATO troops in Afghanistan. Did he do the right thing to make that statement? Was he right to apologise?
There was no way Donald Trump ever meant the British. Ever. And you talk to people in his team, and they're very, very pro this country. And our contribution in Afghanistan, pro rata, exactly matched that of America. The one thing I have picked up from Americans, not him, but other Americans, is their deep concern about what's happening to our special forces. These endless prosecutions, the use of the ECHR against British veterans. If we devalue our special forces, we make our relationship with America militarily weaker. And we've got to recognise that we are incapable of defending ourselves without American support.
There's a lot of anger in the United States right now about the way ICE agents are conducting themselves. 2 people shot dead in Minnesota. You will have seen the videos. What's your reaction? They are going too far, are they not? That man had been disarmed. He was shot in the head 10 times. He was no longer carrying a gun.
The fact that he was carrying a gun, of course, meant that he was
allowed.
Sorry?
You're allowed to carry a gun in Minnesota.
Yes, but you don't carry a gun to a protest. That's the point. If you're going to protest, you don't carry a gun, even if it's an open carry state. Look, it looks like ICE have gone way over the top. But I'm afraid every single year in America, we see examples of the police, of the authorities that go way too far. But because it's ICE, it's obviously much more controversial. And I sensed, coming out of the White House last night, they're pretty uncomfortable too.
And just finally, Sadiq Khan, the London mayor, is suggesting that if you bring in your mass deportations to the United Kingdom, we could see similar scenes of violence and disorder. Has this given you pause at all? What's your response to what Sadiq Khan said?
We do not routinely, as a country, give our police force, give our authority weapons unless there is an imminent risk of a terror attack. And when it comes to deportations, the point is, if people are here illegally, they shouldn't be here. It's as simple as that. Now, no one's pretending this will be easy. No one's pretending there won't be pushback. But it needs to happen because if it doesn't, you don't stop the flow of people continually coming here illegally. And overwhelmingly, the British public think, whilst we welcome people from other countries in the right numbers, illegal immigration has to stop. And it's very near the top of the public's concerns.
Nigel Farage, thank you. So a few things jumped out at me from that interview. First of all, on Suella Braverman, he's keen to stress he's not taking any Tories at all. He said he wouldn't take Boris Johnson. He will take the ones that, as he sees it, have seen the error of their ways. I mean, looking at the tweets when I put out that Suella Braverman had defected, some of them are saying that the Conservatives are winning the next general election by proxy. Nigel Farage wants to stress, though, that they have no experience of government reform and that they really, really need the experience that people like Robert Jenrick and Suella Braverman can bring. On Andy Burnham, I thought it was very interesting when he said that Andy Burnham would have picked up what he called the anti-Starmer vote. And they won't have that in Gorton and Denton now. He says that that anti-Starmer vote, he thinks, will come to reform. When I pointed out how popular Andy Burnham was, he said, well, he's not Prime Minister, he's not going to be Prime Minister for now. It's clear that Nigel Farage is pretty happy in having Sir Keir Starmer as Prime Minister, given his incredibly unpopular favourability ratings. And then just finally on the ICE agents and what's going on in Minnesota, I thought it was interesting that he said that it looks like ICE have gone way over the top, and he says he thinks there is some discomfort in the administration about that. But my goodness, another huge day in politics. It never stops.
Literally, it really doesn't. Thank you very much, Catherine Forster. Very interesting, though. Yeah, Nigel didn't commit to that ICE question, but I guess if you watch the footage, it's very difficult to know exactly what's going on. And of course, in America, you're allowed to carry guns, so. You know.
Yeah, and yet I think there is a valid criticism of the American administration in terms of both of these shootings. You've had the Vice President, you've had senior officials immediately say ICE was in the right, the protester was in the wrong, they were doing this in photos. Why can't this administration just say, look, we don't know what happened, we're going to have an investigation, we're going to be the grown-ups in the room, we're not going to rush to judgment on either side, we're going to let the investigation take its course, and then we will make our judgment. Instead, it's become this culture war thing where everyone has to pick a side immediately.
Well, I spoke to, and I had Paul Dudgeridge, he's the host of the Politics People podcast. He lives in America. And one of the observations that he made about ICE is that in some states, in particular the Democrat states, they've laid off, kind of kept the police away from ICE. So in other states, the police will be the first ones to intervene and then ICE. But in some of the states where they want ICE to look really bad, then the police move aside and then ICE seem to be taking over. So it's almost as though the Democrats want these. And it's not happening in many states anyway. There's only a couple of states where there's a problem, where it seems to be there's a problem with ICE. So that's what I've heard, but that's from the other side of the pond.